state. So what did you do this weekend? Did you spend time?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Shrewsbury Zoning Board of Appeals public hearings for Monday, April 11th, 2016. The only public hearing we have on the agenda tonight is the Pointed Hills Farm, continued from our prior meeting. Before we get started on that, we have a few house cleaning measures that we have to take care of. One of which is approved minutes from our March 21st meeting. Has anyone had a chance to review them, or everyone had a chance to review them? Yes. And can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? We have no bills to sign, which brings us to our 7 p.m. continued from December 14th, December 29th, January 25th, February 29th, March 21st, and March 28th, 440 and 526 Hartford Turnpike. Smart Growth Design, LLC, comprehensive permit to construct a 280, which is now 248 units.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Franz already, Smart Growth Design, LLC, proponent for the project. With me this evening is Wayne Belloc from Waterman Design, Nancy from Tetra Tech, Susan from OnSite, and Tom Parise from AECom. Jamie Walsh was working with AECom for us for a while, and now she's no longer with the company, so Tom is taking over in her position to follow through on the sewer analysis. What we did this past week, last week, was we had three highly technical lengthy discussions regarding traffic, regarding water, and regarding sewer. So we made some good progress in having those meetings. We're going to present some of the findings tonight. DOT was at the meeting as well with the traffic. So it's our goal to try to complete the discussion on traffic, complete the discussion on water, and the sewer. We can't bring finality tonight because we're still looking for some other information from Weston and Sampson, so we can in fact rerun the numbers. So I think if you have no objections, I'd like to do water first because it's going to be quick.
Yep.
Then we can do sewer, and then we can do traffic last, if that's okay with the board.
That works.
And at that point, we can do that. I don't know how the slides are set up, Wayne, in terms of what you have there. Is there anything on water? Okay. Susan, you want to explain what transpired regarding the meeting? It's just in general terms, nothing.
Okay. Yeah. We prepared a letter of response to Kate and Howard, the town's consultant, in response to their letter that they sent to the board, basically going through each item line by line, concurring and agreeing that we would add items to the plans as needed. They were at the meeting, as was the fire chief, and my opinion was, based on that meeting, everyone was in agreement that all the technical issues with the project were adequately addressed. So flow and pressure to the development could be adequately obtained using the existing infrastructure for both phase 1 and phase 2. The only item that remained on the table was regarding that vinyl lined AC pipe on Route 20 that we will be connecting into, and that became a negotiation as to whether it's on the developer to replace that or it's an existing condition that the town would need to replace on their own. So,
is that where you're planning on running a parallel line?
The parallel line?
Yeah.
There was one issue on the intersection with the parallel line, wasn't it? And we decided to put that.
We were in agreement with the parallel line, although we agreed during that technical meeting it could actually get shifted down so it wouldn't be on Stony Hill Road, so we wouldn't have to tear up the road there. But the overall concept of having a parallel line so that Stony Hill Road would stay on the low service area and the development would be on the reduced high service area. Everyone was in agreement on that.
So in essence, the loop system for our site would be fully contained on the project site and connect out to Route 20.
Okay.
Is that correct, Susan? Thanks.
Okay. So the only issues left remaining on water are basically what the mitigation, what the one
Well,
pipe.
there's an off-site pipe that has vinyl line, and we have to further discuss that with the sewer and water department, engineering, and then at some point, look at if the town has it in their budget for replacement of that line, I think in 2017. And then there'll be discussion about the connection fees and mitigation fees and the status of that pipe to see who's going to do what and when, and we'll work that out with the town sewer department. At some point, then make the call to the ZBA at that point.
Okay.
Is this the pipe the town is regularly flushing because it's
Yes,
at the end?
the dead end. That is exactly right.
And that's the concern about the plastic liner?
Yes.
Anyone else?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Anyone in attendance have any questions on water? Okay. Moving on to,
Okay. You want to discuss sewer because of the lack thereof? Tom, you want to just explain what transpired basically before Jamie left and where we're at now and what you need in order for you to finish what you need to do so that peer review can do their review?
Sure. Again, Tom Paris from AECom. Yeah, there was a meeting last Friday with the development team, Weston and Sampson, and the town to talk about the wastewater issues, along with the water issues. And there was 4 items that was agreed to at the end of that meeting that Weston and Sampson was going to provide to us. Average daily flows of all the pipelines and tributary to the 3 pump stations, some photographs that they had actually presented at the meeting, electronic survey, because there's 2 sets of surveys that have been done, and we want to compare both of those surveys. And then also, they were going to provide some upgrades that they thought were necessary at the pump stations and what the developer may be responsible for. So until we received that information, obviously it was agreed to we couldn't go any further and confirm the information and update our analysis of the wastewater system. And it was also agreed that once we had that and reviewed it, we would re-meet with that same team before we came in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals again.
and is it my understanding that both consultants have agreed that 80% is the standard on the flow?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
No, I'm fine with that now.
Any sewage issues? Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on sewer? So what's the schedule for when these next meetings are going to occur?
Yeah, we never received the information from Weston and Sampson yet, other than what was given to us at the meeting that you were also at. So I can check in with them because I know that you're waiting on that information to continue with providing, to then continue or give us information that will help us move forward.
Mr. Chairman, Tom, if you receive the information, all of what you need, do you have any idea how long would it take for you to do the next iteration so we can meet back with the technical team again? Any idea?
I'd estimate about 2 weeks from now.
About 2 weeks?
Okay, so our next meeting is April 25th, which is in 2 weeks.
So we need it soon to meet that next deadline, which would be a great
Yeah,
idea.
and again, we're kind of running out of time, so
Okay.
it would be great if you could have it for our next meeting.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, is that something, through the chair, Matt, is that something that
I'll check in with Weston and Sampson.
could we see if they can expedite that within the next day or so?
Yep.
And just kind of, they're holding up the works here.
They said they could do it, and if they have partial information, he can start some of it. If they don't have the budget for certain costs, they can at least give the technical stuff to us.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
If after the analysis is redone with the 80% and it's determined that there isn't enough capacity, how much time will we need for a proposal on how to handle additional capacity? That won't be by April 25th.
A good question. We think, we still think there's not a capacity problem with some additional work to be done in the pump station and the condition of the line that's there. I think once we review the photographs of the line and the line is tuberculated and it's not really flowing as it should as a new pipe, and there could be remediation to open that pipe and clean it properly and reevaluate the pipe then, so we get a true picture of that. Also to ascertain that the slope in the pipe, that the surveyors agree what the slope is. So now we have the size of the pipe, we have the condition of the pipe, we have the slope of the pipe. Now we can really put a number with this next iteration of what the pipe capacity is. If the pipe capacity is near its limit and is due to the over-pumping of the Cherry Street pump station at, for instance, 500 gallons a minute when it should be 350 gallons a minute, and we adjust the pumps there and we adjust the holding tank there, so now you're not surging 550 gallons a minute in a pipe that's half plugged versus a clean pipe at 300 gallons a minute at the right slope. There may not be a capacity problem. So we have to get to that point where nothing is done other than that. If, in fact, we do that and it's a capacity problem, we don't have that answer yet other than replacing the pipe.
Okay.
So don't know yet.
And is that the Cherry Hill or is that Cherry Street? Or
Cherry Street.
Now, what about Stony Hill?
Stony Hill, they did some drawdown tests, and there's some issues there that can be remedied with changing horsepower, changing impellers, doing work in the pump station. The force mains are adequate, so that's a big thing. So we can address those issues once the final numbers are in. But the biggest thing is the Route 9 line, and how do we make that line work properly, and then evaluate. Right now it's not working properly, both on the pump station and the pipe is plugged.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
Nope. We'll wait for the next results.
Anyone in attendance?
Mr. Chairman, Dennis Murphy from Hill Law on behalf of the neighborhood group. If I might, to try to move things along for the next meeting, I appreciate, and I'm not an engineer, but I'm familiar with the issues that the board faces. I'm glad to see there's agreement for discounting the I&I. That's a step in the right direction. I think there was also a disagreement among the engineers about the proper methodology to evaluate the sewer capacity, whether it's a peak flow or average daily flow. And I wonder, through the chair, if we have a resolution among the engineers to that issue.
Yeah, as far as I know, we do, talking to Jamie, that we're going to be using average daily flows. That's why that's one of the pieces of information that we're looking for from Weston and Sampson in order to verify calculations.
Okay.
I'll just note the disagreement that Weston Sampson had. I'm sure you're familiar with their latest peer review report where they're recommending peak flows, which I believe is consistent with the guidance provided. I can't remember the manual off the top of my head, but the engineering guidance on sewer capacity hydrology. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else wish to be heard on sewage? Okay. Moving on to traffic.
We should have had one of these meetings last week about 3 months ago. Okay, this is the one everyone's waiting for, I'm sure. So, Nancy will give you a good update on where we're at with traffic and what transpired indirectly this past week.
Nancy, it's a little slow sometimes.
Oh, God, and I pressed it twice now.
Now we'll wait twice.
Right. Oh, it's on. It's on. Oh, that was light.
Here you go.
Coming.
All right. So, Nancy Doherty from Tetra Tech. I've been working with Fran on the traffic for some time now. Last meeting I was not here. Courtney Jones of my office was here, and she talked about traffic and access, I believe. We kind of moved on a little bit between, from the nitty-gritty of the traffic impact study and moved on to, addressing access. She presented two options, kind of a modified plan from the one I presented back at the end of December, which addressed some of the comments that the residents brought up, which we agreed with. And then she also presented an option for a signal down at the easterly end of Stoning Hill Road, which I believe everybody loved. Okay. So that didn't go over very well, and we understand the reasons, the additional traffic through Stoning Hill Road. There were trade-offs. We thought it was, address some of the safety issues people have with the left turn coming out of Stoning Hill Road. But it certainly would put more traffic through the neighborhood. So that's off the table, and we understand that, and we appreciate that. So subsequent to that meeting, the Board of Selectmen wrote a letter to MassDOT indicating that they would require or request that we no longer consider the signal at the easterly end, which is fine, but also that no access on Stony Hill Road would be allowed, with the exception of access for emergency vehicles and presumably pedestrians, although the letter didn't state that. So last week, the town organized a meeting with MassDOT, ourselves, and a couple of technical people from the town to talk about that letter and what that means. So what I want to do with you tonight, if that's okay, is just kind of go over the implications to safety at Stony Hill Road and Route 20 if we are not allowed to have access on Stony Hill Road. So the board is fully aware of the implications of that letter, that request. So this is, can everybody see?
Yes.
I don't know exactly know where to stand. So this is the project. This is Route 20, of course, Stony Hill Road, Loop, Phase 1. This is 156 units now. It was 180. It's about a 13% reduction, and an equivalent reduction in traffic volumes, of course. And then this is Phase 2 with 92 units. It was 100. It's about an 8% reduction. I'm going to start at the easterly side, which is the easier side to talk about, of course. This site has been designed with 2 driveways with a full access on Route 20. And we have full access on Route 20 because it's a nice straight leg of Route 20. There's wide shoulders there. And when we met with MassDOT, they seemed very comfortable with the idea of having a left in, left out, right in, right out, full access. So losing the driveway here for vehicular access, we can live with that, and we're willing to certainly to compromise on that. It's not so easy down at the other end. There's definitely implications to removing this driveway here and having this only as right in, right out. So this is the plan that was developed about a year ago. It was developed in consultation with Mass DOT, with town safety officials. Doesn't mean that anybody approved it. It just meant that there were a lot of engineers in the room talking about access at the west. At least it's Phase 1, just in case you're not clear. So the site is here, and this is the driveway that we proposed. And what this plan entailed was a left turn pocket here on Route 20, so that cars that are continuing through in the westbound direction would not have to get behind a car waiting to turn left. As you may recall, I talked about a collision that did happen at that intersection several years ago, where someone was waiting to make a left into Stony Hill Road and was hit by a distracted driver playing with his or her GPS and hit that person. I believe that was a serious crash. This is a nice safety improvement, and it benefits not only our residents, but the existing residents of Stony Hill Road. We also have developed or proposed a sidewalk that would connect Stony Hill Road to the Stony Hill Road Plaza. So there's additional pedestrian accommodations, as well as accommodations or sidewalk along the frontage along Route 20. This was at the request of the town, thinking long-term that someday Route 20 would be a little more pedestrian-friendly. So that's our contribution towards that. So we were very comfortable from an engineering point of view with this design. We looked at the crash data at the intersection, both the local and the state data. The state data indicates to us that the crash rate at this intersection is 0.29 crashes per million entering vehicles. That's half of what you normally see at an unsignalized intersection in Massachusetts. So we don't feel from an engineering point of view that we had a safety issue there. The local crash data indicated not a significant number of crashes. Of course, I understand, I don't live there, but the data that we looked at indicated we didn't have a safety problem. And we were making it safer by providing the left turn pocket and pedestrian accommodations. It also entailed a deceleration lane into the site here. We put the taper back in here that Courtney probably talked to you about, as is there today. There's a little bit of place where you can pull over if you're coming up, turning right onto Stony Hill Road. You can kind of come out of that auxiliary lane for trucks and make the turn. And then we did a little bump out here, so there's more of a taper coming into the decel lane. So people that are sitting on Stony Hill Road looking to their left have a clear indication whether people are turning right onto Stony Hill Road or coming into the decel lane. So if this driveway goes away, Stony Hill Road, I'm going to get to that in just a minute, but I do want to talk about kind of what the volumes look like at the intersection, the way it's designed today. And these numbers are a little bit smaller or a little less than what's shown in the traffic study because we have fewer units now. Basically, we're looking at 25 additional cars making a left turn here, 16 making a right during the morning peak hours. So a total of 41 additional cars coming up this 300-foot length of Stony Hill Road. It would be approximately 8 cars turning in the morning. Obviously, you wouldn't expect a lot of traffic in the morning. So about 50 additional cars there. Today, there's 60. It's a 300-foot length of Stony Hill Road. There's no houses in here, so we have virtually no impact to noise or air quality. But there's definitely going to be, more traffic here. We're also comfortable with this because we looked at delay studies out here. We did a delay study in February. We did it somewhat during adverse conditions because there was a fair amount of snow on the ground when we did this a year ago in February. And what we found was that, generally, when there is a queue, it's an on average 1 to 2 cars. We also found, this is something I didn't talk about in the traffic study, but I think it's important for people to know that between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning, which is the peak hour of that intersection, there's 42 minutes when there's no car at all on Stony Hill Road waiting to turn left or right. So I feel like there is capacity. The engineering study showed that there is capacity at this intersection to handle these few additional cars, which is roughly 1 car a minute. So most of the time there's not a queue. When there is a queue, it averages 1 to 2 cars. So I want you to try to remember the 25 cars that want to go left here and the 3 that are making a left here, because if we lose that driveway, these less are significantly impacted. In the afternoon peak hour, the volumes, we've got about 29 cars coming back, making the left turn here, 15 coming in from the west, 12 making a left out, and 9 making a right out. That's at Stony Hill Road, with the volumes here coming in and out of the site yard. So, if the driveway goes away, the improvements that we proposed up here will go away as well. We will no longer have that left turn pocket here. We will no longer have the sidewalk, the widening at this end of the south side of Route 20. So with respect to volumes, what that means, everyone will be coming in and out of the driveway. 16 turns right in, 64 making a right. But of the 64 that go right, if you remember, I had 25, or we have 25 cars that want to go left. So 25 of those 64 cars are going to come out and they're going to want to go back in this direction. And there's 3 ways that can happen. They're going to make an illegal turn here. We will do everything we can to design the intersection so that doesn't happen. But the desire is going to be strong to do it, given that there won't be a way to make a left turn at this intersection from the site. 2, people could make U-turns in commercial driveways, and listening to you folks in the past, we've heard that people kind of do that already. And that's for people that have a choice. They can make the left turn if they're willing to do it. It's about a 40-second wait to make a left turn, and that's a very acceptable delay at an unsignalized intersection like this one. And thirdly, they could make the left on Cherry Street and then the left on Gold Street. So that will add traffic to Gold Street, which is something we also heard that people would like not to have happen. So that's the morning peak hour. In the afternoon peak hour, the left turn in that we talked about, the 29 cars that want to do this, will no longer be able to do that. So instead, if they're not allowed to make a left turn into the side driveway here or here, they're going to need to make a U-turn somehow, some way, or reverse direction. One, they could work things out up at the center and come through Gold and come around and come in this way. The other thing they're very likely to do is, 1, they'll try to make an illegal left turn here, or 2, they're going to have to make a U-turn, maybe at Stony Hill Road here, or possibly down at the plaza. So those are all possibilities that could happen. At the meeting with MassDOT last week, we did talk about full access on Route 20 here. And we talked about possibly a left turn in and a left turn out, along with a right in and right out. They seemed somewhat receptive to making, allowing possibly a left turn in. We would shift this left turn pocket to the east to allow the cars to pull over and safely make the left turn into the site. So that benefit goes away for the residents of Stony Hill Road, but we get the benefit, the safety benefit of having the left turn in. It's not as safe a location to make a left turn as it would have been down here, because the sight lines are certainly less to the crest of the hill, which is about 660 feet to the east of the driveway. But it's conceivable, we don't know for sure, but it's conceivable that they would allow that left turn with a proper design. The left turn out, they did not seem interested in, and that's because of the sight lines to the right. You certainly need a fairly long sight line to make a left turn out of a road such as this with the lanes that we would be proposing. And we may make it, we would need 650 feet. We've got 660, but they may be looking for even more than that. But that's the minimum. And if we shift the driveway to the west, then we start really reducing the size of this decel lane. So, respect to volumes, if we were allowed to have that left turn pocket on Route 20 westbound, it would certainly help with the cars that want to make the left turn in, but we still have the problem with people that are turning right and want to go back this way. So again, these 25 cars will still have to figure out a way to proceed west, which is the direction they want to travel in. And in the afternoon, it's 36 cars making right out, of which 12 will want a reverse direction. But we at least solved the problem of the 29 cars wanting to turn left. So just kind of going back, this is the proposal that we've had in front of you right along. It's the one we're most comfortable from an engineering point of view. It's been vetted with DOT. It was vetted with town staff. No one said definitely yes. They seemed comfortable with it. So I guess we'd like to hear your thoughts.
I guess from my perspective, I'm looking at what leaves the Stony Hill residents no worse off than what they currently have. Which?
Well, this makes it better for them.
The one before. Well,
This one. The improvements, the one that we presented to you from the beginning. And you get the whole left turn off it here, and you get pedestrian accommodations for the shopping center. You know, I'm sure there's kids that run down to that convenience store all the time, and this certainly makes it better for them.
Okay.
So yes, there's a few more cars on Stony Hill Road, but I think that the capacity is there.
I have a question. Could you go back one slide, maybe? The left turn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have a really stupid question, apparently. Why? I like this, except for the no left turn out of your development. Is that absolutely? Does that have to be illegal? Can it be made legal?
Well, like I said, we met with DOT and we talked about this last week, and they did not seem comfortable with a left turn out because of the sight lines to the right to the top of the hill.
Okay, and then you just explained you need 650 feet, and if you got closer to Stony Hill Road to give that sight line, it becomes a little bit of a bottom.
The decel becomes, you're going from 50 miles an hour to 14 miles an hour to make that right turn. So you need to give them some distance to slow down to make that turn.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Why not two left turn lanes? One for the project and one for Stony Hill.
Frankly, our impact down here would be pretty negligible if we weren't allowed to have a driveway here. So, I don't.
Well, but I'm thinking in terms of the residents. You had it in the original plan, and then when you suggest this, you say, well, we're going to take it away.
Right. That's because we had our driveway down here, and we were providing mitigation up at this intersection to accommodate that driveway.
I just think it would be safer to have them in both locations, but at least with this design.
Yeah, it's something maybe the town working with the state could do in the future, but.
Fred?
No.
Okay. State your name for the record, please.
Kerry 108 Stony Hill Road. In the end, was DOT okay with removing the access from Stony Hill Road?
I'm sorry.
Because I know that was the whole issue in the beginning.
Right.
They supposedly had an issue with it. So, in the end, were they okay with removing that access and just letting all the new residents access to Route 20?
Mass DOT has no control over Stony Hill Road. That's a local road. So requesting to DOT that no access be allowed on Stony Hill Road was...
But that's what we were told before, that there was an issue with that.
No, Mass DOT would prefer to see the access on Stony Hill Road, to be blunt, because it makes sense. It's a fully designed roadway as opposed to having another driveway out on Route 20. So this was the compromise was to have the two driveways.
So what DOT said during the meeting last Thursday was that generally they prefer access to be off of their state highways when it can be accomplished. However, they did indicate that the left in, right out option was something that was approvable. They haven't said that they absolutely would approve it, but they did indicate that that was a potential option.
Okay, and another question. Why would the improvements go away if you took away the access to Stony Hill Road?
Because our impact to this intersection would go away. We would have almost insignificant impact to that intersection. All our traffic would be up here.
Anybody else? State your name for the record.
Neil Martin, 6 Foot Hill. You said that the peak time at that intersection is 7:30 to 8:30. How did you determine that?
Traffic counts,
From what time to what time?
7 to 9. We also have 24-hour counts, tube counts that were done. Actually, they were done with video cameras, so you didn't see the tubes. So we do have 24-hour counts as well. But in the morning, the counts were between 7 and 9. And we've counted that intersection 3 times at this point, and it's amazing how consistent you all are. The cars coming in and out of Stony Hill are pretty much the same. The 3 times we've done counts like that.
Anybody else?
Steve Danielson. So are they okay, I mean, with this proposal as you have here, they're okay with this?
This is a concept. There's no design. They haven't seen a design yet.
They haven't seen.
No, when we met with them, Friday was it?
Friday.
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, it hasn't been time. They just said the idea, they'd consider it. It's possibly that it could be approved. There's no guarantees. But they also indicated that are left out with very unlikely that could be approved.
And just a follow-up.
Yep.
Ones that you crossed out, I guess that's going to have a fire gate on there, and I guess there will always stay a fire gate no matter the future, I guess.
Presumably.
Emergency, yeah.
So
You got to state your name each time.
Neil Martin.
Yeah.
You said that your plan is the best, like in terms of safety getting in and out of Stony Hill.
Better than these other options.
Sure. I can't remember though what the average wait. You said the average wait time right now is 40 seconds.
No, the average wait, because it's a 1-lane approach, right? The left and rights are in the same lane. On average, people waited 28 seconds.
28.
If you were going right, clearly you waited less than 28 seconds. If you went left, the average was 40 seconds.
Okay, so 40 seconds.
Yeah, for the left turn, right.
Okay, so with the design, with the improvements, I don't remember what the average is projected to be.
Well, those were measurements in the field. We would expect them to be about the same. And you're still crossing the same number of lanes. If you're making that left turn out, you're still crossing 2 lanes of traffic,
right,
just as there is today.
There would be more cars queued there.
Well, like I said, there's 42 minutes when there's not a car on Stony Hill Road. So not everyone's going to come at the same time. I suspect they're going to be coming.
Right, it'll be like it is today, where someone
It's going to be
has to
pretty
wait a long
similar.
time and sometimes you don't have to wait. But is there any way of thinking about what the impact would be on the average left turn? I mean, because I thought that it was doubling the amount of traffic through that intersection.
It's doubling the amount of traffic, but like I said, there's 60% of that hour, there's no cars on Stony Hill Road. At least that day that we counted, that's what we saw. So, it's hard to picture it being much more difficult to make a turn. Now, if the traffic on Route 20 significantly increases and the gaps get even tighter, the delays are definitely going to get longer.
Part of what you experience there, I'm sure you know, is I guess they call it platooning, where the lights at either end, there's red lights and then it's green, and then you get an unbroken stream of traffic, maybe for 40 seconds, right? And you need to brake both directions to make that left turn.
That's correct.
So I'm concerned that it would be a non-linear effect to add that much traffic when you're waiting to make a left turn.
Yeah, the traffic on Route 20 is not significantly changing. And
I know,
tuning
but
if that's
about
not
the queuing and
changing.
then you're waiting for those platoons. That's all. Right.
A couple of times you mentioned average wait time, average number of
Yeah.
cars. Isn't it better? I know you're talking about there was a certain amount of time when there's no cars at all. But where we suffer is not the average. Where we suffer is peak, right? So you might take 10 cars in 1 hour and 3 cars in another hour, 5 cars in another hour, and you have an average. But the average isn't reality, is what the reality is.
Right, that average is during the peak hour. The morning peak, when the traffic is highest coming out of Stony Hill Road over a 24-hour period, that is the peak.
Right, but it's not.
And yes, there's an
instance, there's a single instance where you might have 10, 15 cars waiting.
No,
and not your average.
Yeah, I mean, even in the peak, I think the most we saw was a 3-car queue. And that happened just a couple times during the morning peak hour. And mean, have you ever seen 10 or 15 cars waiting to turn there?
Have I?
Yeah.
I've seen probably 7 or 8 cars waiting. I've seen at least 7 or 8 cars waiting. No, there's no question about it. I've been in the neighborhood since 1997.
Yeah.
So, and now you're introducing 156 apartments times 1.5 cars per apartment. And I know there's a percentage of them are going to go left, but
And they're not all going to leave in that 1 hour. None of you all leave exactly between
Understood.
7:30 and 8:30. It's, you know, each apartment doesn't generate a car trip during that hour.
State your name.
Peter Riley, 19 Pheasant Hill. I think of all of the options that we've seen, this one probably is probably, in my opinion, the best option. I guess the question that I have is, you know, we've gone through this process and we've heard multiple times that the DOT has pretty stringent requirements on what developers and what they will allow and what they won't allow. It sounds like from the presentation that they have a requirement that there be a 650-foot sight line to allow left in and right out and all and whatever that is. And if I understood correctly, there was 660 feet of sight line, which would meet their requirement.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt.
That's
clarify a little
that's
bit.
okay. If you can clarify it.
Yeah, so that's a guideline from a book called ASHTO, which is design guidelines for sight distance. And that's based on that distance, that 650 feet, is based on the 85th percentile speed on Route 20, which is what we measured in that direction, 52 miles per hour. And actually, if you remember at the meeting, with MassDOT, what he said to us is that people sometimes go faster than the 85th percentile speed, and they might be looking for longer sight distances than that.
Well, and I guess this goes to my comment that if Mass DOT, you know, has a challenge or has an obstacle, it seems like we're meeting their threshold within reason. If they need to reduce the speed on Route 20 to accommodate something like this, because there are areas on Route 20 where the speed limit is less than this. Coming up the hill by Flynn's, it's 40 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden, you're coming down the hill, and it's 50 miles an hour. To me, I think the recommendation needs to go to the DOT that they consider making it a 40-mile-an-hour stretch if it allows us to reduce that sight line and get in. The other comment I have is, you know, it's nice about the sidewalks to the little plaza, but having kids myself, I can guarantee you my kids are not walking on Route 20 either on the left or on the right because of the amount of traffic and things. But as I look here from a mitigation standpoint on the neighborhood and taking into consideration the development and what would, you know, conceivably be our neighbors, I think that this particular plan is probably the best option that we've seen so far.
Anybody else?
Joe Taylor, 132.
Are there going to be any future discussions with MassDOT on this subject? Are there going to be any more discussions with MassDOT? I just wanted to make sure.
I don't think there will before the end of this process.
There's a concern I have, and it's been mentioned in writing to the board. It's been mentioned verbally by me and by others several times. All the traffic studies, I'm sure, is accurate. The numbers are accurate. But the left turn data conceiving I guess it underrepresents the problem. The reason the left turn data is so small is because the residents there have learned not to try to make a left turn in the evening. Right? So if you say, Nancy's probably very accurate, if she says, oh, I don't know, there's only 8 cars between this hour to try to make a left. That's because the residents don't even follow.
Right, but that's what this.
Right. So what's going to happen? Here's my concern. So you've got residents here that are departments that are relatively, let's call them transitory, you know, not permanent. It takes a while to learn your way around your neighborhood, learn what works. Right? It took me a few months to learn, gee, you know, I better not even try to make a left there. You're going to get people moving in and out of apartments all the time. You're going to see a lot of cars try to make this left turn. It's going to increase that queue much more than Nancy's data suggests today, because it's going to be a learning curve.
Well, this option wouldn't let them take
this
the left
option wouldn't happen.
But
to Stony Hill.
Folks that are, you're going to have a lot more U-turns. You're just putting a lot more.
You're going to have more U-turns.
Well, you're going to have all U-turns.
Yeah, because that's
with this
what's coming
option.
out of here.
It's not going to allow a left out of
The reason I'm assuming Peter likes this option is because it takes it off the street and takes it off Stony Hill.
Understand that it's going to increase all those U-turns on 20.
They understand that. That's why this isn't their preferred option, but they're willing to consider it.
Yeah, and if you go back to the other one with the driveway on Stony Hill, they call it, what I'm just discussing comes into
Right.
play again.
Correct.
Either way.
Everyone knows that.
Okay.
There's no secret. That's not the.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Actually, I'd like to ask you, Counselor, and Nancy, a question. During the meeting with MassDOT, when we looked at the various options, did they express a preference? Didn't they at one point rate the options that?
Well, like I stated earlier, they said right off the bat their preference is always access onto the town road rather than onto the state highway.
Okay. Yeah, that seems to be what I recall. So basically, the option that's currently.
But I mean that is a default position for them,
Right.
not just for this project, but for any project.
But then again, I lean back to where I'm saying before is what's the least detrimental to the current residents of Stony Hill? Which option? Which might be this one.
Right. So the board needs to consider the option that is a realistic chance of being approved by DOT, but also has the least amount of impact.
Correct.
At least for the residents of Stony Hill. The board should at least take into account what impact all those cars going right and making U-turns will have downstream as well.
I think, Mr. Chairman, my impression from the meeting with DOT is that we had initially two driveways, one on each site.
Yep.
We acquiesced to the driveway on the other easterly site, right in, right out, left in, right out. That solved that problem with the neighbors and solved the problem with DOT. Going back to this site, in lieu of the traffic light here and the other light, all the cars are going through the neighborhood. That didn't work. Now we're down to this secondary access here, 300 feet in from Stony Hill, which goes through no residences, no traffic going through the neighborhood. Now we have to weigh, and I think DOT, they still weren't happy with no left turns coming out of this project at all, where people have to go up the street. They might even go in the Stony Hill east and make a little U right there and come back out, and that intersection and cause conflicts there that don't exist now with people trying to make the left there. They're going to go across to Commerce Park, and they're going to try to jump into that first left that's coming up on the top of the hill and bang a U-turn there. They can go up to Centec and bang a U-turn there. They can go down Cherry Street. So, in fairness to that residents in that project, they have no option other than go on Route 20 and take a U-turn somewhere, which is a dangerous situation.
But understand also, there's a strong likelihood they're going to do that either way. I mean, my understanding is there's a certain percentage of current residents on Stony Hill that do that anyways.
They do.
They come out and they take a right and then take a U-turn. It's going to be a stronger incentive for that to happen from this site. Because not only would they have to take the right out of Stony Hill, they have to go in onto Stony Hill first. It would be easier for them to exit from their own driveway and then out onto Route 20. So I think your percentage is going to be higher. So we can't just presume that none of those people will be doing that.
But the fact that DOT is still not strongly in favor of this last scenario that you liked, we don't know the probability of that getting approved. The probability of getting it approved with the left coming out to Stony Hill was much higher based on their discussion.
But they haven't said no.
They haven't said no.
Okay.
So it's this kind of relatives thing here. I just want to bring that out. It's not a fait accompli.
Right. Anybody else wish to be heard? traffic.
Steve Danielson, just a clarification. So are we going to talk about traffic at the next meeting then, too? Or try to move it? This is it.
This might be it on traffic.
So you won't really know the eventual outcome.
Correct, because this is going to be done the first week of June, I believe. And
I think it would help to at least have a straw vote from the board to let the applicant know which way they want
Right.
to go with regard to this issue so they can finish their designs.
Before we do that, can we
Yeah.
look at two slides?
absolutely.
If you go to your proposal that has access to Stony Hill on phase one. Okay. So the arguments I'm hearing so far against this is we've heard from residents that average queue doesn't really matter. It's how big is that queue going to be when I'm there. And we have witness account that it can be 7 or 8 cars right now. If you go to your next slide, I think where you're showing the impact of numbers, how many more cars could be on Stony Hill. You say 41 more cars, but we could guess what that would mean to that 8 at one time queue.
Well, first of all, I didn't measure an 8-car queue.
Right, that was, we have
I had
resident
video
accounts of
that.
sometime they're sitting there and you said 3 or 4, but I think.
I said an
At
average
one-
of 0. Most of the
yeah,
time, there's
average,
no car.
Yeah,
When there is a queue, it's usually about 1 car long.
okay.
You know, and
You said
sometimes
3
we
or
saw
4.
as much as 3.
Okay.
And I think the longer the queue on Stony Hill, the more likely the residents of the project are going to go out and take a right and do a U-turn.
Correct. Right. Can I finish?
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
Okay.
You get to go first.
So their concern, what I'm hearing, is that their queue that they're sitting in is just going to be longer, and they'll have to wait longer with this. That's the strongest argument against this right now that I'm hearing.
Yeah, I look at it, it's kind of like what you said. It's you're going to have a bad situation on the right turns, making the U-turn, regardless of which option you use.
Yep. Can
So
we
then I look
wait
at-
for a second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm taking the floor. But that's the strongest argument I'm hearing right now, as opposed to some of the other alternatives that have people going through your neighborhood to get out of here. If there are others, you can raise them right now. And then the other alternative that you haven't gone to well, you've mentioned it to them, but haven't gone through the approval process. If you could show that slide.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. And I'm strictly talking impact to the neighborhood.
Right.
Oh, back, not this one. The one with just the X. So this one doesn't affect that 7 or 8 queue you're seeing today. You're still going to see it. There's no, and there will be no improvements to the Stony Hill because they don't have to make them for their development. So you're not going to see any impact on that, except for the people who want to go out of this development and use your neighborhood to make that left, if they don't want to do a U-turn. So there could be an impact to your queue, is
You're
how I'm
talking about
seeing that.
The 36 cars, or the 12 cars
The
that
12.
might take a right on Stony Hill Road. and
They're
come
going to
all the
go
way
out
around.
of your development,
Yeah.
and then they're, instead of finding some way to do a UE, they're going to use Stony Hill
could.
to...
Yeah, I didn't say that, but
I-
that's
I was
possible.
waiting for somebody to say that, but I might do that if I lived there.
I see that as the least likely option. I still think
Okay.
the way I'm looking at this is you're still going to have people making right turns and having to make a U-turn regardless of which option is selected.
And that is still happening. I'm just
And that
saying
is
they
happening
could
now,
go
right.
through their neighborhood now.
But
And when they would have
Yeah,
gone
but
either way,
yeah,
is
but-
what I'm saying.
I think the biggest concern with this proposal is that people are probably going to be taking lefts into Stony Hill to turn around if they're not allowed to take the left into the development. I think that is a bad option. The right in, right out, no left in.
No left in's a problem here.
Yeah.
And I have to say, in terms of the people that make the right to make a left The data supports that there's a small percentage that do that, but it's not a huge number of people that do that. It's roughly a 60-40 split in terms of people going to work in the morning. 60% want to go to the left, but we measured like 45% going to the left. And we know that because in the evening coming back, 60% of the cars are making right turns into Stony Hill.
They have to come from somewhere.
Yeah, and we also know that from Journey to Work data, U.S. Census data.
Right.
So we agree, but it's not a huge number, at least in terms of what the data shows us.
Correct. Dale?
Yeah, Dale Martin, I just wanted to respond to Lisa's comment. I think you would be crazy to come out of here, make a right, and then turn right, and then loop 2 miles back through Stony Hill, and then wait to make a left turn out into Route 20.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't see
I don't see that happening. Yeah.
But I mean, it's a fair point. I don't want extra traffic through the neighborhood. I would be more worried about people making a left turn in Stony Hill, doing a 5-point turn right in the end of the street, and then making a right back out. To make the left turn in.
So if they weren't going to do what I described, they're going to, that means that folks in that development, in addition to those of you who do it already, will be making that U-turn somewhere. Go ahead.
Just to clarify, I was one of the people who said I make a right instead of making a left.
Yeah.
I've never made a U-turn on Route 20. It's never happened.
Yeah.
I'll never do it.
Well, I mean, you turn
Cherry
into
Street,
something and
Cherry
you...
Street, Gold Street, right turn on 140. I mean,
Yes.
think about where
We
you're
could have
going.
more of that.
Right, you're going, like, where am I driving to now? Williams
Exactly.
Street. Okay, that's
Yeah.
a right turn. I'm
That's the way to go.
middle school. I can easily get back onto 140 without doing anything crazy if I go through Cherry Street and Gold Street.
Ma'am? Go ahead, state your name for the record.
Lijian, 83 Stony Hill Road. Can you go to the other slides that has the outlet to Stony Hill Road?
Has the access, I
Yeah,
think,
they
to
have the
Stony Hill.
access
Your
to the
proposal.
Stony Hill Road. Yeah, that one.
First slide.
Yeah, this one.
All right, that'll work.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, I also want to point out that very close to that 41 outlet, that has a school bus station there. Yeah, and in the morning and the afternoon, a lot of the kids will stop there. So if you have 41 cars going out from the development and 8 cars getting in, that's going to create not just the traffic jam, and also create a very huge kind of a traffic concern to the neighborhood kids. And we have a lot of kids in that neighborhood. That's definitely going to be a big concern.
Okay. So bus stop location, we would have to look at that.
Right. And actually, within the community, we have not just one bus stop. We have several bus stops in the along the Stony Hill Road, and that much traffic kind of go into our community. Definitely going to create concerns. Yeah.
Thank you. Peter?
Peter Riley. Lisa, just one clarification. In the way you characterized our main concern about this particular plan being the wait time of the 6 or 7 cars, that's important. But I think what's even more important is the safety issues. When you have 5 or 6 cars lined up and you're impatient, and you're crossing 2 and 3 lanes of traffic to make a left-hand turn, I think a fair way to prioritize our concern is safety is number one. And we've all got children, some who are new drivers. They get impatient, they make a bad mistake, they pull out, take a left-hand turn, and there's going to be something scary that happens.
Is there anything more than anecdotal evidence in studies that once the line gets longer, the window is shorter where people are willing to pull out?
I can't think of a study off the top of my head, but that makes sense if you become impatient. But again, I have to keep saying, there's 40 minutes during the
I know.
when there isn't a car there waiting to turn onto Route 20. So.
And again, I know that we're juggling, the safety against, what will people do when 12 cars need to take a U-turn, and I'm not so sure that all 12 of the cars necessarily need to take a left turn to get where they're going, because quite frankly, some of those 12 are going to go down 140 to go to Route 9, which obviously they can do from any number of different areas. And again, I think, as I think Bill or whoever said, people will become comfortable with what can and can't be done safely. And, I don't think as a board, you can make your decision, based on forecasting whether people are going to do illegal moves or not. You got to look at the data and you got to say, people are going to do the right thing when they go through it. So
one could hope, yeah.
So again, it's safety, certainly, certain level of impatience, waiting in line is certainly secondary.
Nancy, is the safest...
Wayne, hold on.
Sorry.
Good.
Dave McCurry, was there any thought into putting time or getting timing between lights between Centec and Linz? Like they're synchronized basically, so they're red on both sides for a certain amount of time, which gives people more time to get out onto Route 20 from Stony Hill Road. Because I think that can ease up congestion in a lot of different ways. Because that's where your mainstream of traffic is on Route 20, and I don't think that's the case today. I'm not sure who governs that. I assume that's DOT.
DOT, I would
Right.
imagine. Yeah.
So the requirement usually for coordinating intersections is something within 1,000 feet. I suspect that intersection to the west, I don't remember the name of the street you mentioned.
Centec.
No, Centec is to the east.
Oh,
right.
Grafton Street.
Grafton Street.
Grafton, right. Is more than that distance, but MassDOT, if I'm not mistaken, is doing improvements down at that end of Route 20. So that's that's something that could be brought to their attention.
So, but normally it's got to be within 1,000.
Usually it's about 1,000 feet for it to be effective. But still, it's something maybe they could look at.
Anybody else? I'm sorry, Wayne, did you?
I'm all set, thanks.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
Steve Danielson, just a comment on safety, because I know now it's summertime and or heading to summertime. We shouldn't have any more snow, but just a comment that pulling out left, as the queue gets longer and is peak, something to consider, and sometimes it's out of mind, is that it's icy on Stony Hill or it's slippery on Stony Hill, where on Route 20 it's plowed, it's clear, cars are going 50 miles an hour, so it makes it more tricky to pull out.
Mr. Chairman, I keep hearing the word safety. When we met with MassDOT, and, I understand the concerns of the residents here and, not wanting to have traffic go out on a Stony Hill Road. But we continually hear about safety. And then when we had that meeting, I don't know how many engineers sat in the room with MassDOT. The plan that had come before you, if I understand correctly, Nancy, that's probably the safest plan we're looking at, right?
I think so.
Okay. And that was the plan that MassDOT seemed to be more in favor of.
Correct, putting the driveways in.
So I keep hearing safety. Is it safety, or is it and no disrespect to the abutters, but is it just the local preference? Is that, because that's what I'm hearing, it's the local preference, and I hear safety. I think I'm getting a mixed message here. I appreciate the comments that it's safety, but the safest plan is a plan that, was presented in the application packet.
I guess I'm not an engineer, but I can tell you that having 41 cars exiting Stony Hill, or 60 cars exiting Stony Hill, and adding 40 more cars from the development is, to me, a less safe plan than segmenting the 41 cars or 61 cars as it is today. Don't make it any worse for the neighborhood, and give the development and access all to themselves, which allows them to go wherever they need to go. So, again, I don't profess to be an engineer, but to me, this is the preferable plan as far from a safety and from a convenience standpoint, as far as I'm concerned.
State your name for the record, sir.
Yeah, Das Arthur, 8 Hill Drive. This gentleman mentioned about the safety all due respect to the DOT engineers, we all know what a mess it is coming out of Route 9 into Route 20 near that Northborough crossing. It is just a two straightforward lanes, and if these engineers were really thinking hard about keeping us safe, probably they would have put in a little bit more measures to address that issue. I see at least 3 to 4 accidents in a week in that spot. So I'm concerned that the same thing will get repeated over here. So I kind of echo on when others are saying safety, I should echo that. It is not a local preference. It is more of a safety aspect that we want now. But I certainly like this plan better than the other plans that were put forth in the last couple of months.
Okay. No, not you. You.
John Better, Better than Hill Drive. As we're talking about this right-in, right-out situation, I'm trying to picture what would happen on Route, say, Route 9, which has a Jersey barrier down the middle. Traffic would typically go to the next intersection with traffic light, do a nice U-turn, and continue on their way. So with the right-in, right-out situation, the real problem is that when people make a right turn out of development, there's no easy place for them to make a U-turn. If at the first intersection to the east and the first intersection to the west, there was a U-turn at that light, then the traffic could easily make a right turn out of this new development, go to the next traffic light, do a protected U-turn, and continue on their way without any additional risk. And traffic who wants to come back in the evening, can go down to the one intersection pass, do a protected U-turn at a traffic light, and then come into the development without any issue. So I think the real issue is that there's no protected U-turn available on Route 20. If you had improvements at the traffic light to the east, traffic light to the west, then a right-in, right-out is very reasonable for this development.
Well, I agree with Mr. Vetter, first of all. I think that makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, that's really not what we get to talk about here. I just want to express my bias, Mr. Chairman. I live in a neighborhood where I have to make a left onto a state highway. And I know what that queue feels like. And I know what it's like when there's another car in the road already stopped, one going north, and another car in the road stopped going right. And people passing on the breakdown lane on both sides, in both directions. And then there's 3 or 4 cars where I'm sitting, all trying to make a left out. I think my bias is any increased left turn traffic at Stony Hill West I think that's dangerous. And I think the limited, excuse me?
Why is it, I mean, what makes you think that it's less safe? Additional cars making a left.
Human nature. Human nature, my own frustration in being in a queue. And certain times of the day, I mean, I go in and out of my neighborhood several times every day. And, you know, if I go at 10:30, I go up to that intersection, I look left, I look right, I might wait a few seconds, and I'm good. 7:15, I can't even get to the intersection. And if you're going to add 40 cars to
Over
that.
a period of an hour, so that's less than 1 a minute.
I'm just expressing my bias. That is my bias from personal experience. And I think many of the neighbors are expressing that same bias based on their real-life experience of living there and understanding what increased traffic at Stony Hill West is going to be. The plan I like, we haven't seen, of course, which is a light at Stony Hill West. Right. And barring not having that, which I guess we're not going to have because of the state's position, I most like the right in, right out, left in on Route 20 and no access on Stony Hill. So for those that wondered about how some of the board members feel, that's how I feel.
That's the beginning of the straw vote.
And I'm not that far away from the same. I'm pretty close to the same place. State your name for the record, sir.
First of all, 18 go back to the slide where there's you have the green arrow, the left hand side,
package? I think so.
We
But you have a turn lane over there, right? Can you put the traffic counts on that?
Sure. This is the morning,
Yeah.
peak hour, this is the afternoon, peak hour.
So you eliminate most of the U-turns with that.
Yeah, the
I'm
U-turns that will be
confused
coming
why that
around
isn't
and
a better
doing this.
plan. I'm confused why that isn't a better plan than the other one where we're making U-turns at Stony Hill.
The one with
On
only
both
a right
ends.
in, right out.
Yes,
Right.
that's his question.
Yeah.
Why is that not a safer plan?
I didn't say that it wasn't. I just said that the safer one, in my opinion, was the original proposal with access on Stony Hill.
Okay, but it seems like that one is.
That one is, now, when you think about it, you're making a left turn here as opposed to making a left turn here, right?
Right.
You're 300 feet closer to that hill, so that for a guy coming up over the hill, and granted we'll have a left turn pocket there, but the sightline's going to be less than it would be if you were making a left turn in the pocket down here. The other thing is, there's no benefit to the existing residents of Stony Hill Road, because this left turn pocket goes away here. Okay, this benefits us certainly, but it doesn't benefit the existing residents.
It just seems like making U-turns down at that west end of Stony Hill on the 20 is
That takes
not
care
very
of that.
safe.
Yeah, I agree.
Chairman Bob Engler for the applicant. I just wanted a couple comments on the process, not on all the actual real-life experience we've been hearing all these months. I just want to say, Paul can correct me, but it seems to me that when you write a condition, it's going to have to be subject to DOT approval.
Correct, yeah.
And so whatever you say, either it's going to be approved or not approved by them. And the baseline is the plan we're presenting that Nancy presented tonight that said she thinks and DOT probably thinks it's the safest plan. So if that's the applicant's plan, and your burden, from my way of looking at it, is to take a local concern that's unsafe, shows that it's unsafe to override the need for the housing. So the burden is on you to say there's a better plan than the one we have presented that DOT seems to think is okay, and have to argue that our plan is unsafe and your plan isn't unsafe, and that's all going to come down to DOT anyway. So you're
Right.
kind of caught between a rock and a
I'd be willing to risk that. That's fine.
That's really where it is. And if any evidence has to be provided, it'll be your traffic consultant, your town engineers, our town engineers. It won't be this board of selectmen. It won't be the residents. It'll be people who have knowledge of how these things work. And that's where the debate's going to be. And I think from our point of view, we've done the best we can with that. So that's where we are. And I don't think we're going to be changing our position in the next month and a half. So that's where it is.
Have you talked to your review consultant and all about these options? I mean, she
Not
was
yet.
at the meeting,
Yeah.
so she's aware of.
Mhm.
She has not seen this presentation.
Right.
Of course, you have this now. But it might be worth getting her opinion.
Yeah, we will.
Steve Danielson. So I do like this proposal better than the other, and I think it is, as being valid as being very safe. The thing that you were saying, you're taking away the left-hand turn only going into Stony Hill, actually in some ways that makes it a little bit easier for us pulling out left-hand. So, because having those cars blocked as you're trying to pull out of Stony Hill is actually a barrier to watching the cars coming down. So in some ways, this is safer for us existing to not have that. I mean, there's good things about the people. It's good for the people turning into Stony Hill lefts on the left-hand side, but it's also bad for the people coming out of Stony Hill to take a left. So there's kind of a neutralization of trying to add something that we think we want, but actually it could be
We had a pretty
more
bad
difficult to pull
crash
out.
with a left-turning vehicle, if I'm not mistaken. There was a pretty bad crash out there with someone turning left. Right? You didn't have a place to pull over.
Yeah, I
tough.
can't.
They
I just
fly
know
down that hill.
Having an extra lane there would be a little bit difficult trying to pull out. And actually, a lot of people do still avoid that left turn into that neighborhood. They actually go to the other end of the neighborhood and pull in because it's safer, it's flatter there. So they don't actually use that to try and get out. And then the other thing you said about the 300 feet just coming over the hill and not having enough time, I think it's sort of interesting when I compare it to the Walnut Street and over by the Y on the 20. There's also a crest of the hill, and I don't think there's 300 feet visibility. So it just seems like we have had that experience before with the hill. And I think that's a longer distance there.
Oh, it's like from here up, it's like 600 feet.
Yeah.
Oh,
It seems like there-
I said 300, I'm sorry. It was,
Oh, it's 600 feet, so it seems like there should be enough.
yeah, but
room
1,100
visibly.
feet from here.
I have a question for you. You said originally that DOT, even though they hadn't approved,
They haven't approved anything.
they haven't approved anything, but they hadn't rejected out of hand any of
That's
the
correct.
proposals.
With the exception, well, all right, no, they have not officially rejected
Right.
anything. They've got pretty, some opinions about a few things, including the signal at the west leg and a left turn coming out of here. They
Right.
seem to be
Right.
And put too much
But
open those two options.
But I'm talking about the options you're presenting tonight. They
Yes.
have not dismissed out of hand
Correct.
either of those.
That's right.
And I guess my question is, when you're talking about safety and these difference on these options, am I wrong in looking at it as a marginal difference between the options? Are we talking degrees? Are we talking, gee, this one's twice as dangerous as the other?
I can't
well,
quantify it, yeah.
Yeah, I know. So it's almost...
At the end of the day, Mass Highway is not going to approve an option that they don't believe is safe.
Right.
Well, that's true.
Right. So that's where I think it's right. The argument, especially, is best to say to try to argue that one is less safe.
So whatever
without
option
any
the
kind
board
of-
picks
Right.
is subject to approval by
Correct.
DOT.
Okay.
If DOT takes a look at that option and says, no, we can't approve it after all, we're concerned that it's not safe enough, the applicant's going to have to come back to the board and get the decision modified
Right.
to go
Okay.
with the next best solution. And it may be, I think, a good thing for the board to actually identify what that next
What the
best
next best
option would
option
be.
is, yeah.
And then that perhaps can then be treated as an insubstantial change.
Okay. So as I go back to my original assessment, then that's a risk I'd be willing to take. Okay. Peter, go ahead.
Just one last point. Can I approach
Absolutely.
the screen?
Yeah.
This is an interesting, because this is the evening, right, when most people will be turning left in here?
Yes.
So again, from a safety standpoint, in the evening, when people are screaming down at 50 miles an hour, okay, here, and we did have a bad accident here when somebody was not paying attention. To me, if somebody's screaming down at 50 miles an hour and there's a car here in the in the left turn lane taking left, if this person is not paying attention at that point, it's probably going to be an accident here. And if they hopefully stop texting and start paying attention to driving, they will do that by going around here, so that if there happens to be another car here, chances are we're improving the safety of the people taking a left turn here by having this left turn here.
Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, but actually there was a discussion that there will be some improvement for the people taking that left in, simply because you're going to be...
There would be a left turn pocket here. Yeah, we would shift this left turn pocket to the driveway.
But even eliminating the left turn pocket into Stony Hill, you're still going to have some benefit to the left into Stony Hill, simply because people are going to be slowing down.
That's the way it is today. I think actually one of the things that concerns us a little bit, and
Isn't
we
that
haven't had
discussed?
time to lay it out, is that a car comes down the hill, they get into the left turn lane, especially someone who's not familiar with the neighborhood, a new person, thinks he's making a left, getting into the left turn pocket to go onto Stony Hill Road, which is what you'd expect. But the left turn lane ends at the driveway, and then they're kind of in no man's land. Now, we haven't laid it out, but that's something I kind of, we anticipate that could be an issue with MassDOT. I don't know yet. But do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Do you understand what I'm saying? You kind of end up in no man's land.
I understand.
You're in the wrong lane.
Any of, just as Dale and I put it out there, either of you guys have a preference?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I promised I wasn't going to say very much tonight, but...
I won't hold you to it, but go ahead.
Okay.
Just do.
Yeah, what'd you do, shut our lights out?
I went to sleep or something.
I think you heard Franny done a very nice job, and I happen to like this. But what I don't like is covert threats. And I think we got our first one tonight from the expert. You know, we know that 40B is approve with conditions, or deny, and I'll go to hack and you'll get hacked. They will do it. I think that's what we were told tonight. I don't like it.
I'll answer that, Mr. Chairman. To me, it's like debating DEP putting in a package treatment plant. That's a state law.
Yep.
So is DOT.
And
So
again,
all I'm saying is it's a state law. I'm
It's
not
a state law, and they haven't rejected it. They haven't said this is a bad proposal.
No, we haven't
Yeah.
said that.
Yeah.
No, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm not threatening anything because I'm not DOT.
Well, and my understanding is the applicant isn't suggesting that they would take an appeal if any one of these options were chosen, because as long as they can get an option approved by DOT, they'll be willing to move forward with their project.
Right.
They may have a preference as to which one they think is the best, but they're willing to live with whatever DOT is willing to approve.
Liz?
I'm on the fence.
Okay. Are you leaning?
No,
Okay.
because I want to go back and look at the report proposing what you're proposing, your favorite. And I want to take into consideration local concern, but I also want to get our peer review of. They haven't seen this option. They've only been at the meeting to hear Mass DOT saying, "Oh yeah, we would consider it," but these folks haven't even done a more in-depth analysis of this. I don't like the fact that there's crash data already existing for the left turn in, and no improvements will be made here. So we have supporting evidence that, okay, no improvements there mean continued crashes.
We have a very low crash rate at the intersection. I'm talking about one specific crash, but you're half
Well,
of
I
what
want
the
to
state
include that
experiences.
data.
Yeah, that's
and
And
weighing.
I think
both
there's a
of
fair
these.
question there, too, as to what improvements can continue to be offered,
With this
even if they're
proposal?
not specifically benefiting the project, but just as mitigation for the area, in which improvements, really would conflict with this design and you couldn't actually include. So I think that would be good information to have as well.
Because this, well, if you go back the slide, there's other X's. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this down here is driven by the left turn lane here, which is the edge of the roadway to the south.
Mhm.
And since we were impacting state highway consistent with state of the initiative program, we are doing a sidewalk here, and that was also requested by the town. So if we're not touching this part of Route 20, it's unlikely that we would do that sidewalk.
Mhm.
Right, and this whole thing was almost $1 million worth of design work. So we're talking about doing a left turn, pop it up here. It's unlikely that we can finance additional improvements down here.
So I'm still on the fence. I would like to get the peer review's opinion of this proposal, and I hope we can get it in time.
Okay. We want to see if we can have Jennifer here for the next one.
Yeah.
I think we had planned on that, yeah.
Okay. How about you?
Yeah, well, I've unfortunately experienced the left-hand fatality on Route 20. It was years ago. It was not in Shrewsbury, it was in Millbury. And very sad. I mean, it was just, not paying attention and see him at the last minute swerve, cause other vehicles to go in the opposite lane. So I'm not in favor of that. I mean, I don't think any of the options are great.
Right, none of them are.
I don't like the fact that doing a U-turn on taking a left across two lanes on Route 20, I don't think is safe. Doing U-turns across Route 20 isn't safe. So, I mean, if I was living in that neighborhood, I would definitely go up and take a left on Cherry and Gold and go out that
Hopefully
way.
that's what most people would do, but I'm just saying, it's, when I put those U-turn figures up, it's to show you.
They really want to go
where they want to go.
It's not actual
how they
U-turns,
do
it's
it.
just people that have to go in the other direction. Yeah.
I guess
It's not necessarily a U-turn.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, go up and get a cup of coffee
Yeah.
and make a U-turn.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. So, I guess I'm leaning towards a right in, right out option.
Right, okay.
I know one way.
State your name for the record, please.
David Carey. I know one way you can fix this, reduce the density more on phase 1, which brings your car counts down even more.
Yeah, we've reduced it by 13% already.
Bring it down about 100 cars, 100 cars.
Not gonna have that.
You mentioned that, this is all subject to MassDOT approval.
State your name, I'm sorry.
Dale Martin.
Yep.
What about the curb cuts on Stony Hill? Is that regulated by the town?
Yes.
And so what's the approval process from the
So the Board of Selectmen usually acts as the road commissioners, but the 40B process gives the ZBA the power. So the Board of Selectmen they've already recommended that they do not want access to Stony Hill, so the ZBA takes that into account when it makes its decision on these options.
So if the ZBA approves the curb cuts, do the selectmen still have a choice in this?
I don't believe so.
The permit granting authority for this project is the Board of Appeals for all local permits.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I'd like to ask Paul the question. It seems the consensus is that this is the preferred straw vote, if you would.
Currently, until we get our peer reviewer to
Okay, but
give us more
this
information.
conceptually,
Yeah.
hypothetically, in tonight's discussion, subject to change. My question, Mr. Chairman, through you to Paul, is that if this is what the town wants and this is what the residents want, and DOT approves it, then everyone's on the same page. We don't have an issue with that, even though we preferred Nancy's first project. If we get blessings from everyone, it is what it is. Conversely, if we go with this scenario and DOT rejects that at that level, because they are lukewarm, but they haven't said yes, they haven't said no. If they could say yes or no now, we can finish the project and the plans. We can't get that. So what happens in that scenario if they say they won't allow the curb cut with the particular project that everyone seems to want now? I mean,
That's why I suggested that the board may want to look at what their number 2 option would be and suggest that that could be considered an insubstantial change. You'd still have to come back, file your application, and you'd have to you'd have to inform the board as to the process with DOT and that you put forward, your best efforts to get the original proposal approved and that DOT had X, Y, and Z concerns and decided they wouldn't approve it, at which point you're going to request to go with option 2, whatever the board chooses that to be. And then you'd have to go back to DOT and try to get that one approved.
so that would be beyond the 180-day, or we have to get a continuation? How would we
No, that would be a condition of the decision. So this would be post-permitting work that you would be doing. Just as you're going, no matter what, you got to go to DOT after this is over and get them to approve your plans and give you your state highway access permit.
Okay.
So if for some reason they decide they really don't like this after all, and the indications I got from them was that this was approvable. They're obviously not going to give any final determination. It was just a preliminary meeting. But you were going to have to go, request that state highway access permit, and they're going to make a decision. If for some reason they change their mind and say no, then it's going to have to be looked at for the second option.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to be heard on traffic? Anybody up here? No?
You want to open it up to any other concerns? Or we still have some time
Sure.
tonight?
Yeah, is anyone open to, yeah, that's a good idea. Any concerns that we've discussed so far? I don't want to open up to anything new.
Yeah, I don't know if it can be answered tonight, but at the last meeting, we talked about how the units were going to be located on each of the different phases. Are they going to start at 20 feet up? Are they going to start below grade? And I believe Mr. Zaretti said that he would answer it at this meeting or another meeting. So I
thought we answered that. No? I thought at the last meeting we answered it, Mr. Chairman, and I thought the discussion was, the concern was, and I actually, when I drove by the site the other day, I looked at it, and as you drive up Route 20, I'm headed eastbound, you look down, for instance, into Phase 1, it drops off maybe 5 to 8 feet, and so I responded, and after having seen what I had seen, it supported my response, that on the grading plans, we show that the driveway for the site with all the parking areas is going to be roughly at the same elevation. So we're going to be filling in that area. Right. So when you look at the existing grades coming into the buildings, that first floor is going to be relatively close to that parking area. And that parking area with respect to Route 20 is going to be within a couple feet of that grade. Down below, when the concern was raised about, again, still looking at Phase 1, Stony Hill Road, that goes away because that building's going away. So what we're going to try to do is maintain that vegetation in there. We're going to be looking at a detention basin in there or some sort of stormwater mitigation to address the Route 20 runoff. Raised, and I believe it was by Mr. Riley on the Phase 2, was the elevation up at the intersection of Route 20 and Stony Hill, and if there was anything that, if it was going to be sitting up on that grade in there, we're looking to cut that out. As I said before, too, it would be to the developer's benefit if there is a way to take out more material and lower that building. We have a lot of grade to play with in there. It would be nicer for the site if we could lower that, and if there's an opportunity to do that, he certainly will do that.
Okay. Yes, ma'am? State your name.
Legend, 83 Stony Hill Road. Since he raised this question about last meeting, raise up the ground. So if we know that the Stony Hill Road area has a lot of rock, so it means the blasting work will be done in that area, right?
Yeah, we already discussed that.
Okay, so my question is, because I checked a little bit on the website, that the developer needs to provide a specific blasting design plan for all the residents who has property within the 250 feet area close to the blasting site will have the ability to request a free blasting freezeway to protect their properties. So I believe a lot of residents' properties on the Stony Hill Road will have that right to request that, right? And that developer will provide that.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, and all the costs should be the responsibility of the developer.
Correct.
Okay. That's my first question. And my second question is about this traffic plan. That I saw that the Phase 1 has 156 units, right? And then the car shows in your plan. How do you calculate the cars? Like 41 in and out. Where do you collect that data?
So we talked about this back in December 29th. There were two sources that we looked at. One, we actually counted the number of cars that came in and out of Stony Hill Road and divided by the number of houses. So we got really good local data. But what we ended up using was national data. We have a book called the Trip Generation Manual that's published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and that data is from all over the country, and it gives us trip rates for single-family homes. And what was interesting to us is that the national data was not much, but it was higher. The rates were higher than what's actually happening on the Stony Hill Road. So I think the numbers you see are probably fairly conservative because we base them on the national data as opposed to the local data to be conservative. So that's where it comes from.
So my concern is that first, since you say it's national data, and Massachusetts is different, and so and we all know that the insurance in Massachusetts is much higher than the other states. So that means the traffic density will be higher first. So do we need to confirm, because I saw that previously with some sewer data in the applicants that tend to use a more conservative data to lower the impact, and actually the impact will be higher. So I'm here. My question is, you're using the single family data to calculate a apartment. That's definitely inaccurate. And
no, that's not fair because we actually did local data. We measured the trip rates on Stony Hill Road. You can't get any more specific than that. And your rates were lower than the state rate.
That's the single family
national rate. But it's single family.
Yeah. I'm saying you are using a single family rate to.
Right. We compared single family to single family. We compared the local to single family.
No. I want to see where this is going.
Guarantee.
What we saw was that your rates were lower. So we felt like the national data was appropriate, but we used the apartment. These are apartments. We used the trip rates from trip generation for the apartment, which is appropriate.
Oh, excuse me, I want to bring this to a close right now.
Sorry, your peer review
Yeah,
consultant.
okay. Anybody else? I don't want this, we've done traffic, I don't want this on the same issue. Anything, Counselor?
No.
You're good? Okay. Our next meeting is?
April 25th.
April 25th. Do we have anything else on the agenda?
8.
8? Okay, so I'm scheduling 8 hearings for 6:30.
9 total.
So you will be number 9, scheduled for 6:45. I'm guessing I'm not going to be able to get 8 hearings done in 15 minutes, so you may have a little bit of leeway there. But yeah, so depending on where it is, I would recommend 6:45.
And Chairman, if I could, just to kind of wrap up some of the discussion we had about water and traffic and sewer at the meetings we had last week. We had mentioned that we would wanted to see some sort of revised plans that had the water design and I guess based on the discussion tonight, maybe the traffic. Is that something that is possible to receive? Because if we're going to have our peer review something, especially for the traffic, I'm not really sure what to show her besides the presentation that we received tonight. And because I believe the last thing we received from Tetra Tech was related to the Eastern Light, which is now off the table. So,
Well, interestingly, Mr. Chairman, some of the guts, if you will, of the project being water, a lot of that's driven by the direction that we take on the access, on the site access out to Route 20. And shifting around a couple buildings and that. So, we could probably come up with something schematically, but nothing definitive, just to kind of give them an idea as to what we're looking at. We did look at, when we did look at water, there was some discussions about the hydrants and the fire chief thinking, or recalling that there were 3 hydrants on the site. There's actually 1. If you look in his letter, he suggested 1 additional hydrant, and then there were dedicated lines connecting to the building. So, we could show something like that schematically, but again, just keep in mind that it is still in flux, subject to what the direction we get from the board on the access to the site.
yeah, my concern was just having something for our traffic
Right.
peer review to
Just
review.
right.
Yeah.
For water or for
No,
traffic?
mainly
Because water
traffic.
is
Traffic.
pretty straightforward.
I think in terms of traffic, we have to internally make a decision. Do we go with Nancy's original plan and submit it? We know the feelings of that plan. Do we try to go with the plan that the board is inclined to look at and see if we could test the waters with the OT on that plan and see the probability of success with that?
Right.
If they say, yeah, I think we can approve that, and the town wants that, that's the path of least resistance. We can come to consensus on safety internally on our end to
Right.
say, well, it's the path of least resistance, but is it really the safest for us or not? And we'll make a decision. We go with the original plan or go with the revised plan that you wanted. But so that may be difficult to ascertain at the next meeting, but if we can, at least we would have a direction of what we want to submit and put it before the board. The water can be done, as he mentioned, and the sewer, until we get that data, we'd like to try to wrap that up as soon as we can with a 10-day lead time to have them look at what we do for the next meeting. So
Okay.
we're working to that goal.
Are we good?
That was it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Maybe I'm tired. I don't
Not as
know.
tired as me.
I just want to get clear on that. So,
Okay.
We could, I don't know if this is reasonable, but have our peer review consultants look at this presentation, and they were at the meeting with the town last week, look at Kristen's letter showing what transpired, get any kind of feedback they have at this point, and then we could, in our order of conditions, specify, if I'm wrong, I don't know, say that we like option 2 now. We would like you to go forth with that, but if Mass DOT doesn't approve it, go ahead with option 1. Did I say anything incorrect?
I don't know if that's the best strategy.
Or we can ask the appellant to do additional traffic analysis for this
No,
option?
we have a 180-day limit,
okay.
so the traffic.
So that's off the table.
I'm sure there's additional analysis
Yeah.
needed
Okay.
other than the feedback from your consultant.
right. And the
I think
community.
your suggestion is pretty much exactly what I was suggesting,
Okay.
which is this board pick whichever option
After
it
peer
feels
review.
is most appropriate.
Right.
And if the applicant is suggesting that that's not their number one option, and that they have concern that DOT may not approve it, that the applicant pick a second option as their best alternative, and simply put in the condition that if DOT doesn't approve the first option, that the applicant come back with a modification to allow the second option.
So, Mr. Chairman, the question I have is looking at the timeframes that council, was talking about and trying to get a plan before the planning board. So, I'm sorry, before the ZBA. So, the question I have is for the board to offer its direction. Is that at the time of the decision as one of the conditions?
Well, are you talking about for for this?
Yes.
For which option?
For the option?
Yes.
Well, three of us gave a preference tonight, so
Okay.
that would be a majority vote.
I think
that's what it came to.
Wayne is asking is
Yeah.
is the decision going to contain the option that the applicant needs to move forward with?
And
the answer is yes.
Yes.
And the decision
By
will
April
also
25th.
By
That's what I'm
June, whenever we write the
Okay.
decision.
That would be nice if we had
Yeah.
a stronger straw man vote earlier. If we get our peer
I'm good
review.
with 3 votes.
Okay. Well, but we haven't received the peer review. You
I
could
understand that,
change
and
your mind.
I said that. I said barring what our peer reviewer says.
And that's just one.
where I'm leaning.
That's just one condition of what the draft
Of many.
decision would be. Understood, but that's one of the conditions that you could change right up until the last hearing,
So,
and even afterwards, because once the hearing is closed at the end of that 180-day period, you get a 40-day period for deliberation, and you can make changes to any condition during
Okay.
that course of time.
It is dependent. What option we prefer, they have to make some changes architecturally, the water plan, everything.
Yeah, there's still a
And
lot.
we're
It's still a
okay.
moving target.
All right.
So to finish what I was saying before, Wayne, the second option would also be identified in that decision. And that would be sort of to make it clearer as to what the board's preferences were. And so if you go to DOT and DOT says, sorry, we will not approve the first option, then you come back with a modification, and the board's already identified which one's the most appropriate. It's already reviewed it fully, so it doesn't need to open a new hearing, so that would be considered to be an insubstantial change. And it can say that right in the decision.
Mr. Chairman, the question I'm asking is that if the proposal was, when the peer review, and your peer review engineer looks at it, and they come up with a decision, what they think is the best alternative, objectively, is that something that the board would seriously consider?
That will color my judgment. Yeah. Yeah, I've said that from the get-go when I said what my preference was. I said, I'm giving my preference, but I want to wait until I hear what our peer reviewer says.
So it's at that time that we would begin to implement those changes on the plans in order to get the plans back before the board for them to act on, right? Or is that something that could be...
That's more of a final plan.
Right.
Detail.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So we are good till...
I have a question about this process. If we do as Paul suggested, would the applicant then be presenting Plan A traffic plan and Plan B traffic plan to Mass DOT?
No.
And then,
It's up to them.
or would there would be
So
one at a time?
our decision is going to be, this is the plan that is approved. So, well, that...
Right.
No, but that will be, the condition will be that we approve the plan that includes option A.
Okay.
Okay? They're going to take that to DOT, and then DOT is going to say either yes or no.
Right, up or down.
Up or down, and then if they go down, then they've got to come back to us and get that modification approved, and then go back to DOT. So they're not going to want to...
Okay, that's what I
They're
want
not
to
going to
be
want to
clear on.
complicate the issue with DOT and give them multiple plans, because
Exactly.
that's adding a layer of approval process they're not going to want to have.
Right, that's my point. That's what I wanted to be clear on.
Right.
Now I'm comfortable.
You're good?
Yep.
Okay, can I get a motion?
We have a question.
From who? Mr. Riley?
I guess I'm a little confused.
As to?
What was just exchanged there? If somebody comes before me and has an option A, but is holding an option B, which is their preferable plan, I don't see it being in the town's best interest to do that, because if option B is the applicant's preferable plan, I'm not gonna advocate for option A.
Option A is what's in the decision, though, and that's what has to go to the DOT for approval.
Right, but if I can convince DOT not to approve it,
They don't want
because my preferable plan is
I think it's a timing issue. I don't think they want to wait the time to get rejected by DOT, to come back to us.
And then
to
open
go
up a
back
new
to
appeal
GP
period.
Open up a new appeal period, go back to DOT.
I completely understand your concern.
My question is looking at it from the town's standpoint, if the town has a preference, why don't they make that the preference and stop it there? If DOT comes back and says no, then the process is going to continue anyways, right?
And then that would open up, I mean, essentially the process would be the same. Even if we don't put it in the decision, they're going to come in and request an insubstantial change, and it's going to be on an issue that the board has had a full hearing on and has looked at that option in its entirety. So it would not be a substantial change. The board would not need to hold a new hearing because they've already heard all that evidence. So you're going to wind up in the same place. I understand your concern, and I think that we should take some care, or I should take some care, in the drafting of that condition to make sure that the board and the town has input into the DOT process, and that we make sure that the option that is contained in the decision is the option that is strenuously put forth in front of the DOT for approval. But again, I think that there are burdens and hurdles that would be placed upon the applicant to try to go for their second option that they're not going to want to undertake.
And you don't think just approving option A and leaving it at that forces the applicant to go at it as strenuously as they can?
I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm not sure it makes a significant difference in the real world. But I will consider that when I'm drafting that condition.
Okay. Now can I get a motion?
Move to continue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
We want to stay till 6.
Thank you, folks.
We already said 6:45, right?
Yes, 6:45.
Shown extra love to by thumbing up is now on one personal station, your station. As you thumb up tracks you love from your favorite stations, they are automatically added to your My Favorites radio.
It keeps me going. It makes the time go by faster because I'm listening to the music.
Go to iHeartRadio.com for all your favorite music, all your favorite stations, all free. You work hard for your home. Wouldn't it be great if your home worked hard for you? Make it happen with a low-rate home equity line of credit from Worcester Credit Union. As low as 1.99% APR. It's the affordable way to turn dream projects into reality. Whether it's a new kitchen, bathroom remodel, building a deck, you name it. One visit to Worcester Credit Union will get your home's equity working for you. Visit Worcester Credit Union on West Boylston Street or online at yourlocalloansource.com. Ask us about home equity lines of credit starting at just 1.99% APR. Worcester Credit Union, your local loan source. Of course, we couldn't be your local loan source if that's the only loan we offered. We also have great rates on auto loans, student loans, personal loans, and more. If you need money for anything, you need to contact us. Worcester Credit Union. Clear.